All right. Testing, testing, one, two. Testing, testing, one, two. Thumbs up. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. How's everybody doing today? Don't forget that we are supposed to come on tonight as well. Hopefully, we could basically be on time. I think give or take about 10, 11, maybe come on earlier. But just keep in mind that we're coming on tonight and maybe tomorrow. Now, hit that thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe. So, important news today coming out of Autauga County. Okay. Autauga County resident Randy Kurt McBride had filed a federal lawsuit against Autauga County Sheriff's Deputy Bart Shannon Watkins, also against the Autauga County Sheriff's Department and Joshua Davis Cochran, which is the Assistant District Attorney for Autauga County. Now, the complaint is for multiple violations of civil rights that Deputy Watkins encroached upon Mr. McBride. The federal rules of civil procedures under 5.2 addresses these concerns when that's the notice and the standard in the lawsuit. So I was looking at this lawsuit and I was basically, um, you know, un, I understand Randy's point here. I think that he had made a prima facie case. I think that he basically is able to prove his case, and I think this should go on to a jury trial. Um, Now, Bart Watkins, as you know, has been accused of harassment. He has also been accused of false imprisonment. And this is really what we've been telling you about against Deputy Watkins. It also goes on to say that on Section 1983, which allows the claims alleging that deprivation of any rights, privilege, or immunity secured by the Constitution under federal laws, 42 USC in 1983, which is the year, if you're suing under Section 83. So, what is the other claims that Randy has against Bart? Well, not only due process, civil rights violations, conspiracy against his rights. He also has, like I said earlier, false arrests and some Brady violation, and also under 18 USC Code 1509, obstruction of court orders. Now, remember, uh, in his lawsuit, he had said that they were supposed to be releasing 911 tapes, and they basically never did for in the court. Now, Deputy Watkins did go to court to defend his self, as far as basically, I don't know if he showed up with an attorney, but while he was in court, it was the judge, I think, that asked him as to what do he mean when he called, or what did he mean when he called Randy a homeboy? Was that a kind of a racial slur there? And Bart Watkins responded that he basically came from a majority African American city, which is Selma, and that language is where he basically got that from. But we know that he was basically, saying things that it almost looked like it was racist. Bart Watkins basically don't like black people. He don't like specifically black men. We know that. Um, Here's the thing. There is a lot of things that get this, like I said, out of the hands of just a judge. I think that if a jury don't pick up this case, I think it's going to be something that the judge is doing. Now, remember, Bart Watkins do have a lot of people that help some of these situations in which we're still trying to basically figure out. Of course, we know that Bart Watkins, have an attorney, Alabama attorney Trey Norman, who also had called me when we put out this YouTube video regarding Deputy Watkins, evidence that he was in the Tarasha Benjamin search party. He's shown up there and taken off work. So he does have counsel. But the question is will the sheriff department handle Bart Watkins' lawsuit, or will Bart Watkins have to basically get his own attorney? If Randy will proceed or is victorious, moving from the Bart Watkins qualified immunity. But this basically does it. A lot of people, several people have filed violation complaints against Deputy Watkins. And this is not the first time. Randy was just the top of the iceberg. And I want to go in to talk about the basics of jurisdiction. I think that, like I said, Bart Watkins have been doing this, getting away with a lot of crimes before this particular situation. Not only that, we had like the other women that came forward and said that he had assaulted a woman. John Ribo, which he had pulled over, said that he know of a woman that basically Deputy Watkins had pulled over. Now, speaking of John Ripo, this is another victim of Bart Watkins, who basically is a Caucasian man, and he had basically got pulled over out of the jurisdiction that he was in back in 2012 or 14, somewhere around there. And John Ripo accused Bart Watkins of falsifying claims again. Deputy also had used his personal cell phone to call Rybo's job to speak with his superiors. Another woman, like I said earlier, accused Bart of, claiming, he had claimed that a woman had stolen a car, which was not true. So Ribo is in the military. And it was in the military. He had credentials. His first sergeant and other people basically knew that Deputy Watkins was lying. Now, he did have a lawsuit against Bart Watkins, but he did tell me over the phone when we were reacting to this situation about Randy's lawsuit that he had dropped that particular lawsuit back in 2013, 14, somewhere around there. He basically, like I said, Rybolt has indicated there's another female. I think a lady who's on Facebook who said, all of the claims that y'all have done against Bart Watkins, she said, and I quote, there's nothing more than what he had done to her. And so also there's another woman in Selma who said that she was assaulted by the deputy. And so here's the thing. Rumors had it that Bart Watkins is on administrative leave and that he's going to be supposed to be transferred to the Autauga County Sheriff's Department. Now, we're getting conflicting reports as to when that's going to happen. But I know that when last time we looked at the deputy and he had his properties for sale, still question about Bart Watkins and his involvement in the abduction of Tarasha Benjamin in Selma, where he was a Selma police officer. Him and a convicted rape suspect named Chris Harris visit her home today at that time. And for 11 years, Selma resident Regina Benjamin said that she's not heard from her daughter Tarasha for, like I said, 12 years. Now, keep in mind, the reason why we know that Deputy Watkins was involved in these two cases, because even, like, for instance, in Randy's case, remember, Deputy Watkins basically falsified his police report, and that's something that he was also trying to prove against the not only Deputy Watkins and also the 911 dispatcher. Now, in court, the judge dismissed the case, and I knew that they were going to dismiss the Bart Watkins case because it was frivolous. If you saw that video on the part one that we did on this situation, it shows you that Bart Watkins was thinking of charges to charge him. Bart Watkins was the one who had asked Randy to basically take his ex-boyfriend to Montgomery to a train station. And Bart Watkins arrested Randy instead of just telling the ex-boyfriend, hey, you got to find another route or a ride. I mean, let him go on about his business. Bart Watkins then put chump charges. He later, basically, according to the Autauga County, well, not the Facebook page that was put up in regarding this situation, where the evidence was pulled up on the Facebook page regarding this incident. It basically had a lot of evidence that Bart Watkins did falsify police reports. Now, as you know, like I said, keep in mind, Randy does have to get past Bart Watkins' qualified immunity, and that's where that's what he's trying to do now. The deputy basically, like I said, no one has saw him in action, as according to sources. We don't know. Like I said, he might be on administrative leave. But one of the things I want to point out in the lawsuit, though, is that he said that Randy said that the plaintiff suing under the Brevins may only recover the violation of certain constitutional right. If you're suing under Brevins, what constitutional rights do you claim are being violated by federal officials? Now, this is very simple because in the basic of jurisdiction under 42 USC 1983 section, that particular, the basics of jurisdiction is very clear, and it asks, are you suing a person in federal court, which is or are you suing a person in state or local court, or a state official rather, in the local area or the federal area? Is this a federal official or this is a state official? And of course, Randy had to say that Bart Watkins is a state official. He continues basically to try to get his attorney, Trey Norman, to basically, like I said, he saw his attorney, Trey Norman, sent Randy, since we last went live, he sent Randy a cease and desist letter, or the cease and list. I forget how it goes. But he sent that particular letter, and then he called me regarding Bart Watkins. Remember when we basically had evidence against Bart Watkins after the video was released, and also evidence that he showed up at Tarasha's search party, which we knew that he was involved some way. The deputies being, like I said, sued. And the most important thing to take away from this particular lawsuit is under 18 U.S. Code Section 1509, obstruction of court orders. Remember, Randy's attorney was asking the assistant district attorney and Deputy Watkins and about certain types of evidence that came from the 911 calls. And Joshua David Cochran knew that Bart Watkins did not have that evidence. And so what he tried to do, still, this assistant district attorney, was to try to still prosecute the case, even though he knew that Bart Watkins was lying. Bart Watkins have a history of lying. He has a history of falsifying police reports and documents. This man has been doing this for years. Remember, Bart Watkins got fired in Marengo County. They chased Bart Watkins out of town, telling him he had to resign because he may have been linked to a rape case involving a police impersonator in Selma. Like I said, Tarasha Benjamin's disappearance. Another woman in Selma accused Bart Watkins of her sexual harassment. A Caucasian woman, I think, she was accused, Deputy Watkins, in Autauga County not too long ago. In addition to that, now, like I said, we have John Reibold, which I just got the phone with yesterday. He told me his incident, his scenario with Bart Watkins back in 2013. All of these incidents and more. There could be more victims out there. The deputy, basically, like I said, is on administrative leave. He's limited to do certain types of duties, is what I understand, because he typically comes in overnight, according to sources. Now, um, that was basically another point that I wanted to point out in the lawsuit against the deputy, which I think is very important. Keep in mind that all parties may join me on my live to speak with this case after we get the results from the court. Now, Randy had agreed. We wanted to get John Ribold on here as well. And so we're still waiting for him to give us a yes and no. And everybody else who basically is a victim that we believe of Bart Watkins. Now, before we basically, go off this live, I want to point out other few things about this case and about Bart Watkins. Keep in mind, we sent a complaint to the Alabama State Attorney General back in 2011 concerning Bart Watkins, and at that time, as we tried to emphasize, is that Bart had a lot of police officers, state police officers. He had a lot of people behind him. He had this colossal, huge, apparatus of people that basically helped to cover his dirt. I think John Ribold mentioned that they have unions or something like that that could help, or if he got basically protect him from being fired at certain instances. I don't know how that would work. It goes on to talk about other people that Bart Watkins may be affiliated with, like we believe, like I said, Stephen Smith Jr., which was also a former state trooper. Bart Watkins also got his handshake, as you remember, back in 2012 by former Alabama State Attorney General Luther Strange, who him and the association member or organization member, Susan Moss, remember they gave Bart Watkins the Central Crime Stoppers Award back in 2012. These types of things had Bart Watkins and other people thinking that this was a deputy that was about business, but it's now coming out the opposite. Bart Watkins, then there was still some kind of critique, if you will, about whether or not if that Bart Watkins and his claims of stopping those two teenagers from robbing a lady, that still is also in question. People are now looking at that to see whether or not was that story really true, and we believe it's not. Okay. Also, the lawsuit do not add her, but she is mentioned. I think this woman Susan McGowan, I hope I said her name right. She was the 911 dispatcher who basically tried to help Bart Watkins. Another woman down there, like I said to Randy the same thing about the police reports. So we don't give police reports out. They said that crowd. That reminded us of what Regina told me regarding Tarasha's case when I first got involved in that. Um, and like I said, and number 10, what Watkins' use of the word homeboy was really offensive. In his subsequent court appearance, Agent Watkins was questioned about racial slurs, where he then stated, "I used to work in Selma." The area in which Agent Watkins referring to is a predominantly African American population. So, in other words, Deputy Watkins said, "As I took that lingo and that language, and I'm going to use this no matter if it's racial or if it's perceived to be racial or not." And also, Deputy Watkins threatened to put a $3,000 bond. And there's evidence that this Randy did not do anything wrong. That Deputy Watkins continued to harass him. He was on the way to the jailhouse. He just kept on with the threats and talking about, "I got to think about what else to charge you with." These are violations, along with the video, that gets, in our opinion, legally Randy McBride past the phase of Bart Watkins' qualified immunity. I believe that he created a prima facie case here. I hope I said that right, where the deputy could be sued in his own capacity. What we're continuing to follow, however, is how this lawsuit is going to take place. Now we know that Judge Watkins, I think the judge in this is one of the, I think in his the administrative judge who handles these lawsuits. I don't know if he's going to be the actual judge presiding over the case, but I did see some Judge Watkins, and I know that they're not related. But you know, but yeah, we're going to keep this going on. Another thing that is important to talk about regarding Randy's case and regarding Autauga County is that the sheriff's deputies also would turn off their body cameras if they did not want for the people to hear or see certain things. And I think that happened as well. Finally, I wanted to talk about one of the biggest things that Randy is suing the Autauga County Sheriff's Department on, and the Assistant District Attorney, who we believe also violated Randy's rights. He talks about where he can provide proof that in Autauga County, where white men and black men do the same crime, it is more than $1,500 more fine under this Sheriff Joe Snyder. Now he's coming up for re-election. He got two opponents in this particular county, and basically, if they do not do anything about Bart Watkins, this is going to hurt Sheriff Snyder in his election. I think that his opponents will have a fair game if they mention Deputy Watkins here. I think that they were, and people, as one person in party said, leaving his sheriff department because of this Deputy Bart Watkins. Now, back to where they're claiming that there's a inequality as to the higher bond. For instance, there's a guy by the name of Austin Reese who was booked on one of the charges and he got a $500 bond. But then you had a black man like Randy McBride, who got a $2,000 bond. And with a lot of things regarding public intoxication, we still see that white men who get arrested for the same thing in Autauga County are given a lesser bond. And that's what Randy is going to try to argue to the court as well. He's going to try to say that this sheriff's department has basically and repeatedly arrests a lot of black people for the same crimes, but the white the offenders get a slap on the wrist, and the black offenders get a more increase on their crime, which he's going to argue that under this particular sheriff and under the assistant district attorney, Mr. Cochran, and Deputy Watkins as their lieutenant, picked as their lieutenant, along with Mrs. McGowan, that they conspired together to try to then change the narrative in Randy's case, how they unlawfully did this in a harmful act against his case. And that's going to be the most important testimony that the courts is going to hear. One of the biggest things I think should happen in this case is for Randy to receive a jury trial. We do not believe that if Bart Watkins and his attorney may try to get this into the hands of an individual judge, and if that individual judge give him a bench trial, which is going to go to a judge, by the way, let me take that back. But if the judge that they choose, if he does not give Randy the request of a jury trial, then we're going to argue there's something fishy about this as well. And this is what we're talking about in the case. Now, keep in mind, Deputy Watkins is still being looked on as him and Chris Harris have been involved in the disappearance or the whereabouts, or they won't tell us the whereabouts of Tarasha Benjamin. Bart Watkins basically has been sued along with the sheriff department. And man, I tried to add it up, and it's almost close to 700 to about $1 million lawsuit. This is going to be something that Bart Watkins cannot get around. He basically cannot get any kind of sheriff's department who could look at this and say that they would not be able to experience the same thing. Like we said earlier, Bart Watkins is the lieutenant of Autauga County Sheriff's Department. He got that kind of a position because everyone, as I was told, was leaving the sheriff department under Joe Sider. They basically didn't think that the sheriff department was very ran correctly under him. A lot of his people who used to work with him basically left to go work with the city of Prattville. This is going to also hurt the sheriff if he decides that if in his reelection that he cannot approve this sheriff's department, it's going to be a problem for him. It's already a problem that Bart Watkins is still employed there. Bart Watkins hanging out with his sheriff, his cruiser, and still doing administrative duties. That's already going to be a problem for this incumbent sheriff. But the other two opponents have a lot to gain on this lawsuit. They can make a claim that says that Bart Watkins should not be a lieutenant. He should not be wearing a badge. They can also argue against their opponent, the Deputy Watkins, that basically there's a lot of African Americans that feel like the sheriff department under Lieutenant Watkins and the sheriff and others is giving African Americans a higher bond than white citizens of Autauga County. This is going to be election that may hurt the current sheriff. Keep in mind as well as the election near for like I said, the election of their new sheriff. Bart Watkins, as they said, was supposed to go down or supposed to be going down to Tuscaloosa and work as a sheriff or a city police officer there. This is going to follow that man everywhere he goes. He does not need to be in law enforcement. And a lot of people is agreeing. And there's a mountain people who is asking these people to, why is this man still wearing a badge? That's what John Rybolt told me as well. He asked me that as well. He was asking everybody that basically knew about his situation as to why Deputy Watkins is still employed. There was other guys, Caucasian people that was also in Autauga County that knows about Deputy Watkins' record, and they're asking the same thing. And this Sheriff Joe Sider, he has no real defense besides being afraid of firing him because of a lawsuit. But keep in mind, Deputy Watkins was fired by Marengo County as well, or he was forced to resign because he was about to be fired. So either they could have said, okay, hey, you just go and you resign, and if you don't, you're going to be fired. That's exactly what they told him in Marengo County. And Deputy Watkins, that's when he went down to Autauga County, and he became that's when he became a Autauga County Sheriff's deputy. Starting out in 2011, Bart Watkins then was a reserve deputy. Now, he did start his law enforcement career in 2009 in Selma, Alabama. He left there with a lot of dirt on his hand. Like I said, the disappearance of Tarasha Benjamin. He went down to Marengo County back in 2011. He had his hands full with that as well, being asked to resign or get fired after a rape situation happened there and a police impersonation attack on a woman there. Then he came to Autauga County somewhere around 2012 or 13. And then that's when we basically knew about Deputy Watkins and 2012 or 13, where he had the incident with John Rybold. Before that, it was another young lady who said that Bart Watkins had an incident with him in 2012 before Mr. Rybold's situation. There was another woman in Selma who said that Deputy Watkins tried to assault her when he was a Selma police officer. And then, of course, the end game here is Randy McBride. This is another person, 7 people accusing the deputy of violation of harassment, sexual assaults, civil rights violation, falsifying police documents, false arrests. This man has basically have been really getting away with this. But what keeps him to get away and untouched is the attorneys that he got. Trey Norman being one of the attorneys that represent Bart Watkins, who had called us wanting us to basically not talk about Bart Watkins' situation and not talk about his criminal activity and his record as a police officer. Remember, Mr. Norman is also representing the controversial state official who went down to Selma to praise a KKK leader. This same state representative allegedly stole $10,000, embezzled it from his own employer. So just keep in mind that that's who attorney Trey Norman is representing, and he's also been representing Deputy Watkins, as he had told us. We're going to continue to follow up with more information about Deputy Watkins and how Deputy Watkins continue to get away with these types of violations in the sheriff's department. We're going to also make sure that a lot of people, even in Tuscaloosa, know about Bart Watkins' situation. And well, all they have to do is Google online. This man is a very dangerous person, and a lot of people saying that he needs to find another profession. You're listening to the Lawyer Henderson podcast show. If you do me a favor, you can like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.